Welcome to Breaking Financial Chains, where we combine practical money guidance with emotional healing to help you break free from financial limitations. I'm Tanya Riverson, your financial wingwoman.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Breaking Financial Chains. I am so happy that you are here. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about the role of money in self-worth and identity. So a little bit deep, perhaps, if that's your take on it. A little bit woo-woo, again, if that's your take on it. I invite you to listen without judgment of yourself or others, or move on to the next episode if you don't feel that this one is right for you. The theme within here is the decoupling of value from wealth, or, more importantly for some people perhaps, lack of wealth, reclaiming power, which we get to choose to take every single day, and redefining who you are. So when your worth feels measured by your wallet, we can come at things quite often from a place of ego instead of from a place of who we truly are as individuals. You know, have you ever felt absolutely amazing, for example, when your income is up, when the bank balance is quite healthy, and similarly then also felt awful when income is trending down or the balance on our bank account is down? If that is the case and that is something you can identify with, that is absolutely nothing to do with the money. That is about your identity. That is about how you view yourself in relation to money. And they are two very separate things. But as we've talked about in many episodes already, we often attach emotion and feeling to money. And that's where things start to get all really tangled up. This is why we can find it really difficult to make decisions around money because of the attachment that we place to it. And yet money is often the mirror that we use to measure value. However, that mirror is cracked. That mirror needs throwing out with the trash. And we get to make that change as soon as we feel ready. Is now that time? Well, buckle up, let's have a look. Let's have a look, see. How does it get tied to identity? Well, quite often it's those childhood stories, those things that happen in our very, very early years that become hardwired into our brain while our brain is in that immature sponge stage of absorbing absolutely everything around us. It doesn't get to distinguish between fact and feelings and experiences because it's just not mature enough to be able to do that. But that doesn't stop it becoming hardwired into our brain as part of our belief system. And that belief can often then become around success equals money. We're only any good at what we do if we have money to spend or money in the bank. It's distinguished by the car that we drive or the house that we live in or the clothes that we wear. Your worth is what you provide, is something that we can then hold onto. It can come from cultural messaging as well, in some instances, around the whole earn more to prove yourself. Dependent upon how you've been taught around money or the experience you have around money with parental with the parental influence that you've been exposed to, or grandparents or family influence that you've been exposed to, sort of throwing that net a little bit further out. It can also come from gender roles, particularly in relation to women, because we often have worth tied up in service and sacrifice rather than earning and making more, which is often the view reserved for men in popular culture. Not in all cultures, but that's quite often the story that we're told. Men would go to work, the women would stay at home and be the caregivers. If that's something that you've experienced, it's okay. You know, this is normal, this happens. It's so common, but that doesn't necessarily need to be something that we hang our hat on in relation to how we view our own worth and how we view money. And there are things that you can notice and do to help and unentangle yourself from this whole piece around self-worth being about money. there are actions that we can take, but it starts with awareness, as with all things, because if we aren't aware, if we aren't conscious of those inner scripts and those stories that we're telling ourselves, we can't change them. They just run unhindered in the background without giving any second thought. So some signs, I suppose, would be really useful for you to notice, and that can show up as guilt. Guilt when you rest, guilt when you're not doing because you're not being productive, as an example. I didn't want that to come up on that podcast. Apologies if you heard that. So guilt when you rest. You have to be doing, you have to be planning, you have to be filling in a timesheet if that's something that you do as part of your work. Other signs that your self-worth is wrapped up around money is when we spend to feel better. So again, it's that emotion that is attached to money, and when we buy something, that instant rush of dopamine because we're actually getting what we think we need is another example of when our self-worth is wrapped up in money. Or withholding joy as a punishment. So because our bank balance is low, we therefore can't take that relaxing bubble bath, get in the shower, girl, and get on, crack on to the next thing on the to-do list, get on to the next meeting, the next appointment. Are you up to date with everything? If not, keep going. You don't deserve to rest. You don't deserve to sit and have a hot cup of tea and sit outside and listen to the birds singing. All signs of self-worth being tangled up in money. Potentially defining yourself by your job title or your earnings or your business turnover. Sharing that information from a place of everybody look at me, aren't I great? That's something that is completely okay to be sharing, but check yourself as to the reason that you're sharing it. Is it coming from a place of ego and self-worth, or is it coming from a place of wanting to inspire and share with others? Those are two very different places to how we then interact and talk about and feel around money. A really common one, and another sign for you, is feeling like a failure when things are financially tight. None of these are real. None of these are linked to money. And if we feel that way in relation to our money, it's something that we can perhaps start to pay more attention to, because they are all signs that self-worth is connected with money. And when that goes wrong, when that helps to make us feel, I guess what I'm trying to say is this is such a damaging view to have around money. If we can learn to detach, we can then come at earning money, spending money, holding on to money from a completely different place. Having money in the driving seat is like an emotional roller coaster. An emotional roller coaster that's tied to cash flow, as an example. Our nervous system is not built to be able to cope with those constant up and downs. Our nervous system needs to be spent supporting us as human beings from going around the day to day and being able to be okay when the money is up, but more importantly, be okay when the money is down. And this is where systems and unemotional things come into their own. They're things that we can have in place, but looking to set these up when we're in a deregulated space of lack or low self-worth is not the place to start. It's the place to notice, make a note of, and then decide when we're going to come back to that when you're in a place to be able to deal with it. This is also damaging because you make decisions in relation to money from a place of ego or shame instead of calm clarity and looking at things from the viewpoint of, is this essential? Is this getting me closer to where I want to be from a financial point of view, or where my business wants to be, or is this helping to turn a corner from a financial point of view if you're not in business? You also lose sight of your worth as a human outside of your output, which can again drive us completely into the ground. There's only one place that's leading to, and that's burnout, illness, disease, and dis-ease, as an example. So learning to be able to separate worth from wealth is going to be a really powerful tool to hold in your arsenal, particularly if you're in a place of wanting to change the dialogue, wanting to change the direction and change the path that you're on. Whether that's you already have enough, but you want to let go of the feelings that you have around money, or you feel you don't have enough and you want to change that as well. Decoupling wealth from worth is going to be one of the very most valuable lessons, the most valuable steps that you can take to be able to go forward without hanging your hat so much on the importance of money. It's very easy for someone to say this without actually being able to share tangible actions. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about next. We're going to look at how to separate worth from wealth. Your value as a human being is inherent. It isn't earned. You already have it. You already carry it with you like a talisman every single day. Being able to recognize and see that is beyond important for you as an individual. You are worthy before the invoice is paid. You're worthy before the salary lands in your bank account. And it might take a little bit of work to be able to understand and accept that and truly believe that. So instead of having some prompts at the end of this episode, I'm going to give you some mantras instead and ways to help you practically reframe that if you don't feel that you're in a place of believing what I'm saying to you right now. Identity versus reality is an important concept to consider. And a way that we can look at that in a practical sense is to think about who you are without the money labels. Who are you as a person? This really does go right back to understanding what your values are as a human being, because whether you accept or understand that, they don't change. Who we are as an individual and what we hold important don't change, and acknowledging that is super powerful, but also learning to be able to hang your hat on that is a great first step to move away from that wealth equals worth story, if that's something that applies to you. So how can you look to split out who you are without those money labels? Well, you can think about things like, what do you love doing that you don't get paid for, that doesn't feel like a responsibility or a chore, that you're not doing because you feel that you should or you have to, or because you're going to be letting someone else down? What absolutely lights you up, and do you really look forward to finding the time to be able to do? Identify that, write that down. Start to put some time in your diary as well to actually do some of that, because the joy that comes from it is going to re-energize you and give you that motivation and that drive to do some of the other things that you need to do. How do you show up as a person when nobody is watching? As in, what is your true, authentic self as a person? You know, what version of you do you let your husband or your kids see? What version of you shows up when you maybe had an extra glass of wine that you weren't intending to have, and you're truly relaxed with your friends, if that does help? What parts of you are categorically unshakable, even if the money disappeared? What makes you you? Take a minute to think about that. What things could you consider? What anchors for self-worth could you learn to identify and take hold of for yourself? And we're talking about character traits such as resilience. Even when things get hard, how can we stay true to ourselves through that time? If we're feeling like we're on the down and out, if we're feeling low, if the money feels that it isn't where it should be, what needs to hold steady for you to remain true to you? And that may be linked practically to not just saying yes to a client or someone that has asked to work with you if their values aren't aligned to yours. how can you hold true to that without coming at it from a place of ego? Because those things cost us, right? They cost us more than we could ever quantify in terms of energy and time that is lost then. And then the resentment that ultimately comes from working with someone that isn't aligned with you or doesn't allow you to be your true self. Character traits such as empathy and courage to be able to choose the direction that you want to go in. We want to look at the impact that we can have. How can you make others feel when we're coming at this from a place of true understanding of what our self-worth is? And we get to then sort of reverse engineer and work that back then to the way that we work and generate income if we choose to. Because this is about growth, this is about who you're becoming, not just what you're earning. This is about fulfillment rather than just having a bit more money in the bank account. Because if we look at what that costs us from an energy point of view and how that makes us feel, it just isn't worth it. Attaching our self-worth to the money has far more detrimental consequences and an impact than if we were to shift our perspective. So we need to practically reframe this. We need to take small steps to be able to make those changes and choose and feel safe in that path. And quite often when I work through this exercise with clients, this is something that they have the most resistance to. And as I've said before on episodes, where you notice the resistance is the best use of your energy right now. That is what needs work. That is what needs a light shining on it to be able to understand and get curious about what's going on under there. So, practical reframes that you can use. This money win is exciting and I'm valuable even without it. So this could be on a successful day, you've won a new contract, you've got paid for an invoice. Even better, even sweeter, right? If it's something that you weren't expecting to come in or you had doubts about getting paid for, fantastic. This money win is exciting and I'm valuable even without it. We're looking to decouple our worth with wealth. Another reframe for you. My self-worth isn't on trial when I rest, pause, or pivot. So if we're looking to make a change or considering that we could change the direction of our business, that we could look to earn money in a different way, this is not about your self-worth. This is not on trial. This isn't something that needs to be analysed. We get to choose. And the final reframe, money is a tool I use, not a reflection of who I am. Understanding why we can't use money as a tool goes back to looking at understanding our money story, understanding where those beliefs originally started from. And we can then start to understand where those beliefs come from and how that plays out in our day-to-day habits and behaviours. To wrap things up today, this might be something that hasn't been particularly comfortable for you to listen to. I know from personal experience how it feels to be in debt, to have significant money worries, to believe that you're never going to get out of that situation. I've worked with many clients who've also been in that situation. You are not your job. You are not your balance sheet or your client list. You, as a person, have value inherently. This is not about what you have or what you've got in your house or your cupboards or anything like that in your bank accounts. You are not any of that external stuff. You are already worthy, and your money gets to rise from that truth, not try to prove it. I would love to hear if anything has come up for you in listening to this episode. Please do comment and share. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm going to see you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining me today on Breaking Financial Chains. Remember, you have the power to transform your relationship with money one step at a time. If this episode helped you, please subscribe and leave a review to help others find their path to financial freedom. I'm Tanya, your financial wing woman, and I'll see you next week.